Hello, and welcome to episode 3, or number 3, of the Talking TV with My Mum podcast, the Geek-Dom weekly review show where we talk about all things geek/genre TV. I hope that you've enjoyed the last couple of episodes, and, fingers crossed we're going to get through this one again this week unscathed. I've had, a good reaction again from the second podcast, so I hope it'll go the same for the third one. So this week, we've got no Flash or Arrow to talk about because they're off for several weeks. So this week we'll be talking about The Walking Dead, Supergirl, Star Trek Discovery, and then we're going to be doing the previous week plus last week just gone's episodes of the Orville, so that then we're sort of up to date with that. Please remember to leave a like on the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, because that really helps us out. The more people that come on board, the bigger we can grow. And yeah, leave some comments as well, because feedback from you guys is great. Yeah, any other bits and pieces I'll do at the end, but without further ado, we will get going. So my co-host, introduce you. So hello Mum, how are you?
Hello Dom, hello everyone. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cough this week, so I'll try not to cough too much. Bit of a chest infection, but apart from that, I'll try to avoid coughing at all costs.
Yeah, we'll do our best. We'll do our best to sort of limit that. But yeah, apologies from both of us if the odd, the odd cough here or there comes through. I'll try and edit out what I can. But sometimes hands are tied a little bit if it lays in with the talking, and we don't want to miss out bits of the content. So yeah, how are you doing? How are you feeling about how last week went? And are you excited about doing this again this week?
Yeah, it sounded really good. I listened to the whole thing with my headphones on and had a good giggle at myself.
Yeah, I had some good feedback on a couple of the bits. Like for example, two things that really seemed to have stood out was the zombie whisperer and the bit with Dinah when we were
Dinosaur!
Yeah.
So people like that then?
Yes, those two bits seem to have sort of stood
There's
out.
lots of Bernieisms in these chats, isn't there?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so yeah, it was good. So we'll see how we go from here. We'll get underway though, because just a disclaimer to everybody at home. I will say this at the beginning of the podcast this time, rather than the end, which is still having a few technical issues. So we want to try and sort of get through as much as we can without having to start every so often. So we're going to make a start with The Walking Dead, which before we go into it, I personally felt this was one of my favourite episodes of The Walking Dead in quite some time. I thought just how the story was told and the sort of background, the sort of undertones about abuse and parallels between characters that featured in this episode. I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed how the whole episode played out. And I sat back afterwards and I was just like, that was one of my favourite episodes of The Walking Dead in quite some time. So, yeah. So this week's episode, it was called Omega. Now, I will say, last week in the podcast, I mentioned about this episode. And then when I listened back to it, I second-guessed myself. And I was going, wait, hold on a second. No, the character's called Alpha. The character's not called Omega. I'm going to sound really stupid now because I'm talking about this episode and that's not the name of the character, and then people are going to call me out in the comments, about it and stuff. So I cut that whole chunk out, and then it gets to this week's episode, and the episode was called Omega, but obviously the character is actually called Alpha. So I was like, well, I probably did make the right call in cutting it out, because I knew what I meant. But it probably just didn't come across that way when I listened back to it. So, yeah, what did you make, then, of this week's episode?
Well, it was really good because, obviously, we got a backstory on, well, some of it, obviously, on the Whisperers.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it showed where they came from, how they started out. Obviously, they were just normal people, similar to our guys, trying to survive the epidemic.
Yeah.
So obviously throughout the whole episode, it was backwards and forwards with stuff that was going on. At the moment, at the beginning, it was mainly the girls' take on what had happened, but they had shown us some bits before. So I was thinking, what's she saying? Maybe I'm not reading it right. Mm-hmm. But obviously then we got to the bottom of that later on in the episode. Basically, she had she had convinced herself.
Yeah.
What had happened, but then we found out what happened hadn't. It had happened the way we thought it had happened. So basically, so Henry obviously got a lot of information out of the girl. So Daryl obviously had been listening in to find out what was going on. Unfortunately, Henry decided to say too much. So Daryl then had to intervene and as if to say, like, you can't tell them this stuff because we still don't know who she is.
Well, yeah, that was the thing. I mean, he was bonding with her as, like, two young people, and obviously he was, he was just sort of chatting away to her, and then he mentioned about the communities, and he mentioned the fact that he wasn't from there, and he was from the kingdom, and she's like, oh, what's this, and obviously he started telling her stuff, and then Daryl, obviously, who'd been sat outside, comes rushing in and pulls him out, and it's kind of like, what are you doing? Why are you giving her all this information? And he's like, I didn't think, I was just talking. And he's like, Daryl could see, it's like, this at the moment, the way it stands is she's the enemy, and you're giving her all this intel. You're telling her, oh yeah, there's this community and there's this community and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, don't be such an idiot. So, it was lucky that he was doing the whole sitting outside listening. But then Henry was annoyed because he was like, wait, you've been listening the whole time? And he's like, you've been using me. And he was really cross with Daryl. And he was like, you should have just told me what you were planning and stuff. And Daryl just did his usual Daryl snarly, scowling stuff. And yeah, so he then...
Because they had a bit of a set to, didn't they, the two of them? They had, I think wasn't he quite mean to Daryl?
Yeah.
After that bit, when he came up, he was saying sort of like horrible things to him.
Mm-hmm.
So which Daryl sort of like brushed it off as he does.
Yeah.
So obviously, so we saw the bit going back into the past where the one of the guys in their camp wanted to get outside. He couldn't stay in there any longer, and the girl's mum just literally killed him, just bothered him, didn't she?
Well, yeah. I mean, we had
killed him
because I mean,
just lost the plot basically.
What was good about that was the fact that we got to see this group, in this shelter, and it was day 23, it said on the wall?
Started at day 23, yeah.
And so you have, like, she's, mumsy, and then you got the dad was a bit rough and ready, and the little girl, which was obviously Lydia, and then, it sort of jumped forward bits and pieces, and we kept seeing the post which had the day number on would change to show, like, signify to us at home that, oh, this is now...
How long they'd been there, yeah.
Further along. And yeah, like you said, there was a guy and he was getting a bit stir crazy and he's like, there could be help out there. We need to get, and they're like, don't be stupid. There's no help out there. Can't you hear the noises? And he was going, no, we need to get out. And obviously he was causing a panic and she's thinking, I have a child and you're going to put my child in danger as well as everyone else in here. Stop acting like an idiot. And the guy's like, oh, I need to get out. And then, as you say, she sort of pinned him down and she was like, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to bring us to danger. And she was holding him down. And as a result of it, the way she had her hand over her mouth and that, she actually ended up suffocating him. That was like, wow, okay, that was a bit. And then the dad sort of took the little girl away. He's like, come on, it's okay. And he was like singing her a song and stuff. And it was like, wow, okay, that was a bit of a shock. But at the time, you're watching it and going, but you can. I'm not saying I condone the fact she killed him, but it's like you can see how it happened. It was, mother protecting her own and saying, this guy's going crazy. And it was done sort of in an instinctive way. That's obviously what...
Yeah, to protect.
That's what we thought. That's what we thought at the time.
Well, yeah, that's where it came across. And obviously, they also showed that, based on her story, the bit where they kept the guy in there. They obviously clearly didn't know at that time they turned. Because why did they keep him inside the compound once she killed him? Because she couldn't get outside, I suppose. She could have chucked him outside, I suppose.
Well, didn't they say they were going to deal with it the next day or something? So they just put a sheet over him.
Yeah, but they obviously didn't realise, did they, the concept of the fact that once they die, they don't die.
Yeah.
Maybe she thought because she killed him rather than him being bitten, he would just die.
Yeah.
I think that's what they must have thought.
Yeah.
But obviously, the young girl sort of saw him and looked at him and then walked away, and then he turned.
Yeah.
And obviously, in the story she told, it looked like the zombie then killed her father.
Yeah, because the dad, she screamed, people woke up, the dad came running in, bowled into the zombie, and then the zombie ripped his throat out, and killed him. That was the end of that. And then obviously the mum sort of hardened a bit as a result of it. You also had a couple of little incidental moments which are kind of important for what happened later. You had things like the dad being like, you know, the mum sort of sat there being like quite submissive, and he's like saying about his beard. He didn't like the beard. He only kept the beard because you liked it. And he's like, well, you know, the world's all gone to hell now. I can do whatever I want. And he was like cutting his beard off. And then they had a whole bit to do with Halloween and I thought, oh, this is kind of foreshadowing the whole thing of like putting on costumes. It was like, that was an interesting little moment as well, which obviously would prove to become important later on. But yeah, and then that was that, wasn't it? And then we kind of went back into the present day.
Back into the present day where the new guys had decided they were going to go out and find their friend, because they said, we'll sneak out and look for Luke because he's our guy.
Yeah.
So they all headed out. There was a bit of an hour in whether they were all going to go, but they did in the end, where they found there were zombies and that there was some horses, which had obviously clearly been they were being eaten by the zombies, but we realised that they'd actually been cut open, hadn't they?
Yes, they were set. You know, they weren't just attacked by the zombies. They'd been killed and then left there for the zombies.
Mm. Oh yeah, actually, that wasn't when they snuck out, was it? That was when.
No, that was earlier
Tara
on.
Tara went with them, didn't she? They all went out, and she said, "I don't like the look of this. I think we should go back."
Yeah.
So obviously, then because of that, they were a bit spooked. So they all went back. But then later on in the evening, they were thinking, "No, I think it was the young girl. I don't want to know what her name is. The one with the short hair. The sister of the deaf woman.
Is either Connie or Kelly? I mean, that's
Kelly. I think it is. Yeah, Kelly. And she said, "No, we've got to go out. We've got to go back out to find them." So they snuck out again. So right, okay, this was interesting because they obviously went out. I'm going to, rather than going backwards and forwards on this bit, the fact is, I thought it was strange that they left the two deaf girls decided they didn't want to go back because the other ones were freaked out and said, "Look, no, we'll come back another day. It's not, we shouldn't be out here."
Yeah.
And they said, "No, we'll stay. I'm staying." I think it was the young girl said she was staying. So the deaf woman said she'd stay with her.
Yeah.
And they're both pretty. One of the other one's pretty deaf, isn't she? And I thought, why would you leave them to on their own?
Yeah.
I can't hear anything.
Yeah. This
seriously. And I thought maybe they were going to go back and then come back, but they didn't. They went. They went back.
This bit was weird because, like you said, they all went out as a group, and then, one of them, it's only one of them that's deaf. The sister that isn't, said, we can't go back, we can't leave him, and it was like, because the reason they decided they were going to go back was because there was a couple of zombies came out of the forest, and they killed them, and they were like, look, this is ridiculous, this is too dangerous, we need to do this in the daylight. And she was like, I can't go, and she started crying, and she's like, he didn't leave me behind when whatever went down at their camp and stuff. So she's like, I owe him. And then the deaf sister was like, well, if my sister's staying, I'm staying too. And then I thought, okay, this is going to lead them all to staying. But instead, they
just left him, didn't they?
Yeah,
what?
Magna and
deaf woman out there.
Magna and Yumiko were like, okay, you carry on, just be safe, and we'll see you later. And it was like, what? Okay, that's a bit strange. And they did, and they just went and left them. And in the meantime, like while all this was going on, you saw shots of somebody watching them through the trees.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, so is this one of the Whisperers is like spying on them? There was clearly someone there.
They left them out there, and anything could happen to them.
Yeah.
So
they went back, and then it kind of with that, I mean, we may as well, we'll cover their little bit of the story, and then we'll go back to the main bit. So with them, they went back, and then the next thing, it was daytime. So it's like, they must have gone out.
Yeah, it took them a while to get there.
Yeah, either took them a long time to get to where they ended up, or they went out very, very late, like, near the early hours of the morning. Because then the next thing, it was they were coming back to the camp, and it was daylight.
Yeah, they probably did, because they waited till everyone was in sleep and everything. So it was probably like really late, early hours, like you say, and then, because otherwise it looked like it took them a day to get back.
Yeah. And then when they got back in, obviously Tara was there, and she looked very cross. And
waiting for him.
They went up and had a word with her, and she was like explaining. She was like, look, it's not that I'm new to this. I've suddenly become the leader, which was never the plan, and I don't know how to deal with this, and I want to do the right thing, but we've got to think smart about this. We've got to work as a group. I'm not against you. I'm with you. And if you break rank, then it just makes it harder for everybody. And they're like, yeah, we understand. We were wrong. We're sorry. And then while they were stood up there talking, they then looked out and they saw some people approaching, and there was some guards from the hilltop. So which then that made me wonder. It was like, because she was then like, oh, do you really think that, we have eyes everywhere? Do you really think we didn't know that you'd gone and all this lot? And I was like, so does that mean the people standing in the trees, that wasn't the Whisperers, it was actually people from
No, it was probably
hilltop,
those guys.
So that was a bit confusing. So they're coming back up with the guards, and you had, it was Kelly that was with the guards, and then the sister was a bit further back from them, and then something else happened, but we're not going to talk about the something else because
I'll leave that.
That
so we'll have to go back to...
ties into the end. So from there, we'll leave that plot thread and we'll go back, and quickly, I just want to cover a bit that we glossed over with the earlier part to do with Daryl and Lydia and stuff, was that they kind of, well, Daryl at least was trying to bond with her over the shared abuse thing, because he noticed her arms and that she had all these marks on her arms. And she then basically revealed they'd come from her mum because her mum loves her and she's doing it to protect her. And he's like, that to me isn't... Because he obviously, we know with him, he was abused by his dad, and obviously Merle used to protect him. So he knows a thing or two about childhood abuse. And he was trying to kind of connect with her, but she still was being a bit arsey with him. And like when he tried to give her the medicine for her ear, and she sort of used it as a trick to try and get the ladle and stuff, and he's just like, oh, why am I wasting my time? And so you had that, and then you also had the bit with, again, the abuse thing again with Henry. So Henry's then talking about stuff to do with Carol, and he's on about like the fact that Carol, the reason she cut her hair short was because he remembered the story.
That was interesting.
Yeah, that her ex-husband, he used to grab her hair and pull her back so he could beat her, and so then that's why she cut her hair, because it was her way of being like, if I don't have long hair anymore, you can't use that, and it'll, this will protect me from you. So you have these parallel stories of abuse and how abuse affects people, and how it can shape your personality, and you can either become a stronger person because of it, or it can psychologically damage you or whatever. And you're seeing all these different aspects of abuse playing out throughout this episode, and that's what I liked. I like these are three people, because I know Carol wasn't in the episode, but we had Henry working as her proxy, and it's like these are three people that have gone through abusive scenarios, and look how they've been shaped as a result of it.
Yeah.
And so as a result of all this, and as a result of obviously Henry talking about that to do with Carol, and obviously Daryl coming to the realization of stuff to do with Lydia, they agreed, that they're gonna try and get this sorted, and they're trying to get to the bottom of this. And do what they can for her, because Henry kept going, I think she's a good person, she's just in with the wrong people, and I think she's good. And he had this real thing, didn't he, where he was convinced that she was a good person.
Well, she said, they won't come and find me. They won't come up. They won't join up. Mm-hmm. They won't come and find me if there's a big group.
Yeah.
They only go where the small groups. As you're a big group, they'll never come and look for me because you're such a big group.
Yeah.
Convinced them, and Daryl said, well, we'll see how it goes, but get some fresh clothes for now, and we'll see what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Which was then when he got called to the gate.
And then did that tie in with then he went off, and then because he went off, then Henry snuck in back down to see her and decided that he was going to let her out for one. He
let her out, didn't he? I couldn't believe it. So he let her out.
Yeah.
And so they were snaking around, and she was eating worms, and she got him to eat one.
That bit was so weird. Because it was
she wouldn't eat any food, because she was saying, because they were trying to give her food, and she was saying, what was she saying about food?
Well, wasn't it? It was to do with the kindness, and it's like, that's a weakness, and she's like, you're showing me more of a kindness by not giving me your food. Because it was almost like it's kinder to let me die than it is to try and keep me alive. What you're doing, what you think is kind, by giving me charity. Because again, it played into this whole thing about weakness and strength, and it's like, by helping me, by giving me charity, you're making me weak. And there's no room for weakness in this world. This world is destroyed, and the only way we can survive is to be strong. And it's like this, almost this brainwashed doctrine, that's in her head. And then, and then you had it was like, they like hid because there was somebody wandering around, and then she started digging through the dirt, got out a worm, and he was like, "What the hell are you doing?" And then she got one and handed it to him, and it was almost like a test, wasn't it? It was like, "Oh, well, you claim to be my friend, and you're trying to understand me, so have this."
Amazing. I just ate a worm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. But then, obviously, you know, he was telling her we've got doctors and everything, and then it said, "Right, we'll get going now." And then she found a hammer.
Yeah.
And she had it behind her back, and she was going. I think she was going to hit him with it.
Yeah, I thought she was
and
too.
And then she heard a child crying.
Yep, and then that sort of.
And then she changed her whole attitude and said, "I want you to lock me back in."
Well, it caused some kind of weird, almost like a traumatic flash, didn't it? Because she sort of went all strange, and she started going. Yeah. She started repeating. So, what was she saying? Like, she's good, or she did what was good, or she's not a bad person, or something like that. And she kept saying it over and over.
She wanted to go back in the cell because when Daryl came back, because he backed down and he realised, no, was it when he brought the twig down and he realised she'd been being beaten with something?
Yeah.
He said, this thing is what you've been beaten with. And she decided to tell him the truth, really what happened.
Yeah, because
that because they'd all rebelled in the camp, and it was actually the mum that killed the dad because he didn't want to go because she wanted to leave. Said, "Well, we're going now." And he said, "No, I'll stay here with the child." And she said, "No, we're all going." And he sort of went, "Okay," but because she didn't trust him to go and take the child, she then blatantly killed him, didn't she, in front of the daughter?
Yeah. I mean, obviously we got onto that because, like you said, she asked to go back to the cell. She asked Henry, stay with me, because she was vulnerable and frightened. He stayed the night. Daryl came in the morning, was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And then and then he said, "Look, we need to try and get this resolved." She apologized, and she said, "Look, I'm really sorry. I've been playing you. I was trying to get information out of you because they're not going to come for me. That's, when somebody leaves the group or someone dies or, whatever happens when someone gets separated, they move on because it's strength and it's weakness." And she said, "So I was trying to get as much out of you so that I would have something useful so that they would take me back." And they're like, "But that's your mum, why would your mum not take you back?" And then she says, "I haven't been completely honest with you." And she said, "But I think I was confused because of what I've been told." And then she kind of revealed that she's been led to believe herself for years and years and years about what happened on that night. So much so that it had become her new truth. But then she had this kind of awakening moment where all the real memories came rushing back in. And then, like you said, we then got to see that story play out again. But this time, it was the mum was like in the place of the dad. So the whole bit where you saw him doing the shaving and stuff, that was her shaving off her hair and saying to him, "You're weak, you're nothing." And she's like, "I only kept this way to please you, and now the world's gone to hell and I don't need to anymore." So she shaved her head. And it was like, oh my God. So all of this that we'd been led to believe, that the father was the arse and she was the kind of submissive wife, it was the other way round. It was like, she's horrible.
Psycho woman.
And so, then it was like, wow, that was a real twist. And then, she decided, we're getting out of here. And he didn't want to. And then, obviously, World War III broke out and everybody started fighting each other. And when the dad refused to go with them, he got knocked over. She went running in and she, slit his throat. And then it was the way that she did it and held his head so he bled out. And she looked around and stared directly at the daughter while she was holding his head back so that he bled out. And it was like, wow, that was
it's like warning, such a psycho, isn't she?
Yeah, and I was just like, oh my God, that was crazy. And then obviously we had the whole thing about the wearing the skins, and it was like, we need to be able to move amongst them. This is the world now. The world belongs to the dead. And if we want to be able to get anywhere, we need to move with the dead. So that's when you started seeing them stitching together and wearing the costumes. And that was, again, the Halloween thing. It was like a template of like, oh, this is the idea of dressing up so that you're something different. And all this was her. And it's like, so she clearly was just always like a nasty person and a psycho. And then, obviously, they're really shocked by all this. And then it's like, okay, so she then gives them a location, doesn't she? And says something about a bridge or something where they have their camp or something like that.
Yeah.
but then said obviously they don't stay in one place for very long. But then I don't know what you thought. I don't know if you had the similar thought to me when they mentioned about a bridge and that. My first thought was, oh, the bridge, like the bridge they were trying to rebuild, the one that got blown up when we last saw Rick.
And the one with Rick, and yeah.
And then I thought, is that maybe how they ended up initially getting attracted to the area? Was after that explosion and stuff? Was that the catalyst that led to the Whisperers, coming into that
going towards that area?
Yeah.
Maybe.
So that was pretty much all of that then, wasn't it? After all that big shocking stuff, then we had the bit we talked about previously with Magna and Yumiko and all of that stuff, and then we get the bit that we stopped at. So go ahead. What happened next? We saw them all coming up.
Right. So we got Kelly coming back with the guards. The other girl, the deaf one, was a little while behind her, and then all of a sudden, we spotted Whisperers heading towards camp as well, and the deaf girl, ran into what was it? Wherever they planted, isn't it?
Like wheat fields or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, like a wheat. She hid in there, so I was worried about her. She also could sense them, even though she couldn't hear them. She could sense them, couldn't she?
Yeah.
She hid in there, and then they came right up to them, didn't they? And she looked mental, didn't she?
That whole bit, the whole bit when it showed from the back, because you had all of the obviously the Whisperers.
They were all dressed like with the Whisperer faces, but she wasn't.
And she just comes passing through them all with this, big, broad-shouldered, bold head, and then obviously the camera reverses right, and her face looked really like. Do you think that was like makeup that she would have on underneath the zombie mask, or do you think that's just her face is just all battered and bruised and cut up?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it looked really, really like she'd been through the walls, didn't it? Anyway,
but she looked tough, didn't she? And she's just like, "My name is Alpha, and I have come here for my daughter. We don't want nothing from you apart from, I just want my daughter back." Yeah, and she was like a real southern, that like, basically it's like, we're only here because we've come to get her, and then we'll be on our way. That sort of was the ending, wasn't it? That was like,
yeah.
She made her demands. They all stood there looking really scary and menacing, and all of our heroes were obviously all stood, because Daryl had obviously come up onto the wall as well, and they're all staring down at them, and then it was just this kind of standoff between their group and this group.
It ended there, didn't it? Like that bit. I was like, oh my days.
And we're none the wiser as to what's happened to Luke and to the other guy, who I can't remember what his name is at the moment.
What his name is.
So we don't know what happened, because obviously the last time we saw them was the bit where obviously they were, they got captured and they had the shotgun.
Well, we know they've got captured by them, but we don't know what they've done with them. We know the horses were killed, and that was all we know, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. And obviously the girl, the other girl's still hidden in the corn or the wheat field. And like now, clearly Lydia has like made it clear she doesn't want to go back. She doesn't want to go to them.
No.
She's now come.
So they got a dilemma now. It's not like a clear, yeah, you can have her, go away now. But then they wouldn't do that anyway, because they're not going to trust them anyway, are they?
No.
They killed Jesus, so it's not going to be a simple swap in their eyes. You killed one of us anyway, so why are we going to just say, yeah, it's your daughter?
Yeah.
But either way, even if they are bantering, it's going to be harder for them to decide what to do. It's not a straight swap anymore, is it?
No.
So we'll have to see. Who takes charge of this one? Whether Daryl takes charge of it or Tara,
yeah.
Tara.
Yeah, I know, because it's like, I mean, I'll tell you something as well. Here's a bit of a scoop. I don't know how this is all going to play out long term, but I've heard that Danae Guerrera, I can never say her surname, Guerrera, Michonne anyway. She's leaving.
Oh.
So if she's leaving the show, I don't know if she's leaving for good or whether it's a Maggie style thing where she's going to go out of it for a while. But I was then watching this, because obviously it depends on how long they've known this, but like, you're looking at Daryl and you're going, he's really being pushed now into that position of being the leader among all leaders, like the Rick style thing of like, yeah, you've got Carol, yeah, you've got the King, yeah, you've got Tara and stuff like that, but it's like, Daryl is like the ruler. He's like the main leader, like Rick was. So it's like, now that obviously there's this thing about Michonne going out of it, it's like, well, is that what they're doing then? They're really going to push this whole thing of Daryl, being the boss bosses.
Oh, they can't get rid of Michonne because that means Judith will have to go.
Not necessarily, unless she gets put in the care of someone else. I mean, I don't.
Judith is. We've got the Negan Judith thing, haven't we? So we can't have Judith going.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how it plays out. How they
Maybe she goes off to see to those women, like where Maggie's gone. Maybe she wants to give the little boy a chance or something, like Maggie did with her son.
Yeah.
Then go there for like a respite. I don't know.
But yeah, I was just like,
we'll
it's going to be interesting to see what happens, how it happens. If it's permanent, if it's just a temporary thing, whatever it is. With her going out of it for a little while. I don't know, but I was just a bit like, oh, okay. That was that was unexpected. I mean, I suppose with her, obviously, her film career's on the up because she was in Black Panther, and then she was obviously in the Avengers movie off the back of Black Panther, and then there's going to be a second Black Panther movie, so she's going to be in that.
Maybe she gets injured so that she has to go away to rest.
Yeah.
So that then she can go and do her filming. Like they do in wrestling.
Yeah.
They get injured. I'm injured for 6 months. I haven't really broken my neck or anything. I'm just doing a film. Maybe that's what they'll do. Well, anyway.
But that news is out there in the world. It's there on the internet. It's there to say that, there's been this announcement made, but it's just how it's going to go down. The other thing I want to know is, like, in this episode, why didn't we see Negan? Where was he?
He was at the other one. The other place, isn't he?
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't see anything to do with him this week, did we?
No, but it was mainly focused on this prisoner, wasn't it? So, it was focused on these people to get a bit of a background on them. So
yeah, true.
It would have confused the issue a little bit more as we were going backwards and forwards with their story as well.
Yeah.
And I think if they'd had that, like you said, you enjoyed the episode because of they were covering in that story. I think it would have took away a little bit of that.
Yeah, true.
They had a sideline with, no doubt, because I mean they've done that before where they've just kept to one area, and then next week it'll be about the other area. So I think it was probably better not to have, any Judith Negan light-hearted moments when it was quite serious.
Very true, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you as well.
We didn't have any light-hearted moments really, apart from eating the worm. I think that's the only thing that was light-hearted in that whole episode.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what I did really like as well. I like the fact that we got this kind of origin story like straight away. I mean, you think about like Negan and you think about the Saviors and all of that stuff. We still haven't really seen the beginnings of all of that. We haven't got like Negan's proper backstory. No. We haven't found out, apart from little snippets of conversation about how he came to be the ruler of the Saviors and all of this kind of stuff. Whereas you've got this brand new group of enemies, and like, we've had the little teasers of them leading up to it, and then we get this episode which is like, right, okay, here's how they began. This is about the leader. This is, and it's like, I know there's still going to be bits to fill in. There's going to be like, so where did they go from there? Where did she recruit all the people from to join her cause and things like that? But, we got this sort of jumping off point of like, this is who our main baddie is. And I really like that.
Maybe they'll break down his story at some point with the fact that he's softened now and obviously after him escaping and going back. Through his conversations with the young girl, Judith.
Yeah, maybe.
Point, he may tell her about when he went back there and, because he went there and there was nothing there. Somehow it'll come out about how he ended up there in the first place and stuff like that. So maybe that's how they'll do it.
Like as a obviously typical, any child being curious, she might ask him a question and kind of, it'll trigger him to be like, well, do you know what? I've never really spoken to anybody about this. And then he then tells her his story.
I feel he talked to her somehow.
Yeah.
He was like that with Carl, wasn't he? He could have, if it hadn't been in such an intense situation back in those episodes, that he probably would have Carl would have probably found out everything about him.
Yeah.
Because he was really fond of Carl, wasn't he? So she's like the new Carl, isn't she? So the way he looks at her, it's like, oh, this is a really gutsy little kid, like he used to say about Carl, didn't he?
Yeah.
So, yeah, you never know. I think that's the way we'd like to see it happen.
Yeah.
But you know what we're like? We like to write the script, but they don't always go listen to us, do they?
No, that's very true. But yeah, so there we go. So that's that for The Walking Dead.
All in all, after you moaning about last week's, you're happier this week.
Yes, very happy this week. I thought it was really good. It was a very.
I thought that at the end of it. I thought at least Tom's going to be happy this week. He was moaning and groaning last week, so I thought.
Yeah, it was a strong.
I just take every episode as it is, and you analyse too much, my darling.
No, there's never too much. Never too much analysis.
Never too much analytical. Yes, okay.
Right, so now we move on to something I would say a little bit more light-hearted. Hearted, that's kind of appropriate. But
Valentine's.
It wasn't, and that was Supergirl.
Yeah, it's back finally.
Yeah.
To let us watch it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it started off with these two criminals in a car. They'd obviously just robbed somebody.
Yeah.
They got something crashed into them.
Yeah.
And when the girl went to see what it was some sort of alien snake thing.
Yeah, it was a weird looking creature, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was they were like a sort of Bonnie and Clyde kind of duo, weren't they?
And, yeah, that's
talking
right.
about their next big score, and they had this invitation that they'd got for a masked ball, and they were talking about that, and then suddenly something came shooting across, and the car went off the road.
So that was like the opening of the program, and then it went into the program.
Yeah.
We had John and his they went. Alex and Kara had gone to his private investigation office, and he had all these presents from all his alien clients.
Yeah.
All these Valentine's-y presents. They were all edible, weren't they? They were like flowers with edible leaves and
like marshmallow hearts and things.
Yeah. So that was quite funny, but then all Alex is feeling like I never got. It was quite funny when she said that. Like I had these plans that once I get this, I take over, then I can now have my life and get married, have my children, all this stuff, and then she's not. None of that's happened, has it?
No.
She hasn't really had a chance. She's like literally just nothing. That's all been thrown to the back.
Mm-hmm.
Now because it was Valentine's and she doesn't like Valentine's, as we know. Because that was happened when she was with her girlfriend, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
She said, no, don't do Valentine's. I don't like Valentine's. So it made it worse, obviously, remembering, oh, it's Valentine's. And look at me, I've just done another thing with my life.
Mm. But they decided, because they said about Nia was going to be having a Valentine's party. So it's like, oh, we'll go along. And like Cara was like, I'll be your wing woman and we'll see if we can find you a date and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But then that kind of got interrupted because they got the work call about the meeting.
But they got the call that they had to go to the there was to do with the crash, wasn't it, basically?
Mm-hmm.
So that she went off to that. In the meantime, we had Brainiac still trying to sign Nia up to be a superhero.
Yeah.
And she invited him on a date to the Valentine's party.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay. Because he said it about the date, and then she goes, that's a date then. And he's all like, oh, okay.
And what was so funny was then...
He had to go as well, didn't he? Because Alex had contacted him.
Yes, that's right, because she needed him to come and like do some like almost like forensics, I suppose. But yeah, it was so funny because you had that bit with him. It was a little bit on from this, but it was the whole thing of him to do with the party and the fact that he's like trying to juggle doing his job with thinking about like, I should buy her a present. What should I go? I'm going to this party. What should I do? And he's got all these different screens open in the background where he's like looking for gifts and all of this kind of stuff. That was so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, he called her out and they went there to where the scene of the meteorite crash was, and they found like was it like a skin that something like it shed
no,
its
they
skin
found
or
the guy that was with her because he was in the car still. He couldn't get out of the car, could he?
That's right.
She'd got out to look what it was. His heart.
Yeah.
They couldn't find. There was something because there must have been something to do with a woman because they must have known there was a woman in the car.
Mm.
There was maybe something to do with her that was left there.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the snakes? Like you say, the skin. So maybe they took somebody else, took the other person, the passenger.
Yeah.
They weren't quite sure, really, were they, at the time?
No. But yeah, so they were like, okay, so this is our thing we need to focus on. And then there was a thing, and then like John's got a case because somebody came to him, somebody that he knew previously or something came to him and sort of said about her husband had disappeared.
Had kidnapped her husband.
Yeah.
He was some high up guy, wasn't he? Something to do with the alien people.
Mm-hmm.
He'd been kidnapped, and he asked Kara would she help
Yeah, that's
him
right.
investigate it. We also saw the Lockwood, is it?
Oh,
The guy
yes.
from the Children of
Agent Liberty, yes, the Children of Liberty.
Liberty in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
That was interesting because obviously the son was voicing his concern, and he let the mum leave, and then he called him back and said something to him, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
What's he saying to his son? What's he getting him involved in? That was I had that, and then obviously we did have a bit with Lena, didn't we? At one point where she was acting really weird.
Yeah, she was sort of acting a bit strange, and then did she get a phone call or something? She got an offer. Something to do with the government wanted to work with her.
Haley's offered Lena a contract
Yeah, that's
in
right.
making superhumans. So she's got a dilemma whether she's decided she's going to do it or not.
And then she told James about it, didn't she? And thinking, because he supported her so far, and he was repulsed by the idea, and he got really annoyed with her and stuff. And then they sort of...
She dumped him, didn't she? She was taking him to Paris. Because going back when she was acting strange, it was when she saw the thing on the telly about this snake thing, something to do with that made her feel a bit uneasy. So obviously then the woman not give her the offer, so she decided, right, I've got to think about this. She told him, all right, we're going to go away. Let's just go away. Like, she just wanted to get away from it all. So thought, I don't know if I want to do this. I think I shouldn't be doing all this anymore.
Yeah.
And then, because he was going, when she told him his reaction, instead of thinking, oh no, I care more about you than that, she just said, no, well, let's get out.
Mm-hmm.
We're done.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Right, so I obviously thought the snake had taken over that woman.
Yeah.
So they went to find
Well, before we have to tie back in with the bit with Jean, because they found out the guy that was missing had been having an affair, and when they went to her place, they found them both there, and they were dead, and their hearts were gone, and so the DEO obviously turned up as well, and they found a safe or something. That Kara used her...
thanks to Kara pretending. So she's not supposed to say she's Supergirl.
Yeah.
So she sort of pulled her glasses down and did a X-ray eye thing, and went, oh, maybe there's... Oh, look, it's all open immediately.
And you had the whole thing then of like, not only does this thing like eat hearts, but it seems to like shiny, like precious things. So they're like, oh, so we're looking for like a thief, but also a thief that like eats hearts.
Yeah.
So you have that weird sort of dynamic there of like, they were a bit confused by like the fact that it's a thief, but it also kills people by, ripping their hearts out.
Yeah, and didn't the woman was still there, wasn't she? In that room, because remember she came out and the snake, and when Brainiac and that was there, and she said, "We are Menagerie" or something, and he drop kicked the snake thing, didn't he? But she didn't. She got up again, didn't she? Remember he did it like a wrestling move on her.
Yeah.
And then she got away anyway.
No, yeah, that was you've kind of combined two different scenes there, because like that wasn't at the place where they found the bodies, because they then there was some like substance that was on the door, and they took it, and Brainy went off to analyze it, and then that's in the middle bit. They then went off to Nia's party, because they're like, well, while we're waiting for the results of the analysis, we'll go to the Valentine's party, and they went there, and obviously had the thing with Alex bumped into one of her exes or something. Ah,
that's right, because she turned up somewhere, didn't she? Where did she go?
Who?
That woman, the snake woman. She went to some official thing, didn't she? Wasn't their party, was it? They went to the party.
Oh no, no! She went. No, she went to the masquerade ball that she found the thing from at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So that's where she went to, and obviously it was this weird thing, because you've got obviously the alien thing, but they were acting. It was like a symbiote. It was like she still was partially her, because she still wanted to steal and be a thief and find shiny things, but the alien snake creature was like using her to get around. So that's where we saw her, was she'd gone, so they'd both gone to separate parties. They'd all gone to Nia's, and she turned up to this fancy like society party, and she was scoping people out for their finery and trying to find their jewels and things like that. So that's where she'd gone off to.
Right, yeah.
So so you had that, but then you had the whole thing, like I said, Nia's party with Alex bumping into an ex, and what else was there? Oh, and then they were having a conversation about stuff. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was hiding in the cupboard from her friend, from Nia's friend. What's her name?
His
her roommate.
House friend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Roommate.
I can't remember what her name is at the moment. Yeah, that was quite funny. And also, and Kara also had a chat with Nia about like doing like honouring her mother and stuff like that, and like sort of saying,
and she also told her that Alex didn't know that she'd also told her then that Alex had her mind wiped.
Mm-hmm.
She was on about her sister, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, I know how you feel because obviously my sister doesn't know who I am because a risk factor. She had to have her mind wiped." So they had a little bit of a heart to heart, didn't they?
And then Brainy revealed that he'd done the analysis and that he'd found the DNA belonging to this woman. I can't remember what her name was now. Can you remember the character's name at all?
No.
But they found this thing anyway, and Kara said she wanted to go with them. Alex said, okay, but you have to stay with Jean. And then they all went off to this woman's place. And then Brainy like then sort of second guessing himself, like, because he's supposed to be so clever, and he's like, I should have seen this before, and I don't understand why I didn't realise that it was like a symbiotic relationship between a human and an alien and all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he was getting himself a bit wound up on it a bit.
That's when she showed up.
Before she showed up, that's when she showed up, and then he kick dropped the snake thing.
Yeah, that's right.
And she said, "We are Menagerie."
Which was actually the name of the episode. The name of the episode was Menagerie. We didn't mention that at the top.
Slightly previous to that, we also had, we had the guy from the Children of Liberty.
Yeah.
His son made an announcement, like, sent a message to the city.
Yeah.
About we had to save the city because they knew about this thing that was going on, this alien thing.
And that they were going to kill it.
Call to power, call to arms. We have to save the day. So I think that's obviously what the dad had said to him. You need to get a message to everyone else somehow, because obviously I'm in here to get them to turn up and see what we have to prove to the city that we're going to save them from aliens, which is what they're about anyway. So then they got to the place. They were all trying to stop her because she was killing people, but she's going, "Oh, that's a nice watch, kill."
Yeah.
And then the snake would have the heart, and then there was another woman. Luckily they got there, but also the Children of Liberty arrived, didn't they? And they said they got there first, didn't they?
Yeah.
And the son was like wearing his dad's mask, like
which
the leader's mask.
I was confused about, because I thought when they arrested Agent Liberty back a couple of episodes back, I thought they took all of his stuff. So I was a bit confused as to, like, did he have spares?
But did he not make a new one? Because he was in a garage doing something. Was he not making another one?
When?
Before he went before we saw him with the Slayer, with all the others. I thought, did he have another copy of it or something? Because I know he opened something and thought, oh, that's the dad's mask, or that's like
that's what I'm saying. That he got the dad's mask out of like a storage locker thing, and it was like, but I thought all that stuff had been confiscated, so I was a bit confused as to how it was there.
I don't know. I can't remember what happened there. But he slayed the dragon, the snake.
Dragon. he chopped the head off, didn't he? He used the big knife and he chopped his head off.
Snake.
Yeah. And that was like, they were all really annoyed because they were like, no, we wanted to capture it and, like confine it and stuff, and you come in and killed it. And then he's like, yay, I'm great. And they were all like bigging it up in front of the cameras and sort of being like that this is, proof that the Children of Liberty are doing good.
It was still fighting, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Supergirl was still fighting it. And then Nia turned up in a superhero costume.
Which was that thing that she'd been given by her mother that was in the box.
Yeah.
So that was quite cool.
So, okay, she's a superhero now.
Yes, that was cool. So you had all of that Because she had that dream as well, didn't she? She had that dream where Supergirl was fighting
She saw
Menagerie.
Supergirl fighting the Snake Woman, yeah. So
Yeah.
she thought, got to do something. I've got to go with my dream this time.
Yeah.
Can't just ignore these dreams. I've got to go and do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So she turned up in her little superhero costume, bless her.
Because she saved Kara, didn't she?
Pardon?
She saved Kara because the main like menagerie creature, the symbiote, was about to go for her, and she came in like out of nowhere and sort of like saved the day.
Yeah. So they took her away, didn't they, the woman? So then that was sort of like as if it, you know, the way they do it in most of the programs. We have that bit, and then we have something else happens, like an ending sort of within the ending. We had the sisters at home having because didn't it show Kara and Alex at first in the house having a chat? They were having some food or something. Oh, they were eating those Valentine's stuff.
The marshmallows.
Saying about, I've decided I'm gonna do all the things I said I was gonna do. I'm gonna go back to the adoption place, and I'm finally gonna do, what I said I was gonna do. And Kara was like, "Oh yeah, I'm really pleased," and everything. So that was like almost like as if it ended, and then it went to the president or whatever he is saying, "We've decided that children of liberty, blah blah blah," and they're gonna let Lockwood out.
Yeah.
Because of what they did.
Yeah, I mean, okay, yeah, so just sort of recapping a little bit what you said. So, the other thing before all of that was when they were taking the girl away, you had that really sinister moment with the, what's her name? The woman that's the head of the DEO now that we don't like.
Haley.
Yes, and there was a whole thing about how the president had ordered that she'd be taken away to, like, a black site, like an off-the-radar prison that she would never be heard of ever again. And it's like,
yeah,
wow, that's extreme. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, okay, she was just a criminal. The alien was the thing that was killing people. So that was a bit hardcore. And then, yeah, you had the bit with Kara and Alec. You had Nia went and got, her friend was eating the chocolates that Brainy had bought for her, but that she's, decided she's going to sort of go ahead and Brainy's going to train her and stuff to use her powers. And then you had the bit with the president, and yeah, he said he was going to free him because he was fed up with all of the protesting and stuff. And he found that loophole, didn't he, that basically said about the Patriot Act that it protects humans, it doesn't count for aliens, so therefore he can't be held. And so he was let out to a fanfare and almost like a hero's welcome.
Yeah.
And he said basically he's going to keep doing what he does and he's going to be there as a protector of humanity. And it was like, oh, great, well done. Not only is this president an arse, but he's now let this crazy psycho back out on the streets again.
Yeah.
And then we got the end bit. Then they went
to the crook woman was in her cell, and some woman came in and said, "You've got a letter. It's from Manchester Black."
Yeah.
Whoa. But apart from the fact she's got a letter from him, she's still got the snake in her.
There was a little thing that kind of went up her throat, didn't it?
It's still in there. So in a way, it's good that they put her where they put her, because if she's still got some of that something in her that's bad.
Yeah.
Imagine if she'd been put in a regular police cell. But what's Manchester Black want with her?
Well, okay, I can tell you something there. In the comics, I can't remember what the name is, but he has his own like team of like kind of anti-heroes.
Yeah.
So obviously they're not villains, but they operate kind of outside the lines a little bit. They're not afraid. Like we saw with him on this show, he's not afraid to kill. If he thinks it's justified, it's like they're a bad guy, they deserve to die. Whereas Kara would be like, they're a bad guy, they deserve to be brought to justice. So he's got his own little team of anti-heroes, and she's one of that team. So it looks like they're bringing this team from the comic books. Again, it's something they're bringing into the real life, into the live action show.
Oh, okay.
So this looks like it's the beginnings of him putting together his little squad of people. I'm not sure. I'm not that familiar with all of them, so I don't know who all of the players are. But she's one of them, and he's like the head honcho. So that seems like what they're going to be going up with. I also loved did you notice the little touch on the wax seal on the envelope was a Union Jack?
Yes.
I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, that's quite cool. I quite like that. But yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, there's so much going on, because you also had the other little small scene with Lena where she took the phone call basically saying, I'm in, I'm on board. I'm going to do this project. So it's like, so you've got that going on. You've got, obviously, the Children of Liberty are back on the scene again. You've got this now sub-story with Manchester Black putting together his own team. You've got the ongoing issue at the DEO and with Kara and with Alex. You've then also got the little sub-story with Brainy and Nia, and Nia's now a hero and she's going to train. And then you've also got the Russian Supergirl thing.
Yes.
So there's so many things they're
quite a nice, pleasant surprise.
Juggling.
Supergirl to have so much going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of plates being
Based on that's the one I've
been spun.
Not really. Well, I haven't been that keen on. So for it to have so many things that going on.
Yeah.
I am so more impressed. Obviously, I think I mentioned it the other week that had new writers or something.
Yeah, they did have somebody else take over at the beginning of this season.
So it's definitely, you notice it.
You
definitely notice it. There's definitely more action, less cheese.
Yeah.
They keep their little cheesy bits in, but it used to be so like, oh, so girl meet boy, sort of blah, blah, blah. Didn't it? But now it's more action-packed.
Yeah.
And it's leading somewhere quite exciting, based on what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's leading, and I'm glad in a way, like you say, the Children of Liberty thing, it was quite a good storyline in there. So the fact that they're now back on his son, he's even recruited his own bloody son. It's like, oh dear.
Guess the wife's also on board as well, isn't she?
Yeah, so going forward, it's going to be pretty good, I reckon.
And so I can tell you, so now that's the one and only one of our superhero shows of this week.
Yes.
That's it now. There's no Supergirl this weekend. There's no Flash and Arrow next week. So they're all back. So I think it's the 3rd, 4th and 5th of March. So yeah, so we've got over a week now until all those shows are back on again.
Oh, right, okay.
That's basically Supergirl done and dusted. So
Star Trek.
Next on our agenda is, Star Trek Discovery. This one, I think it was called The Saints of... What was it called? Saints of something. Saints of Imperfection. Saints of Imperfection.
Yeah, but this one was really sort of finishing off the week before, wasn't it? Because we were continuing, obviously, at the end of the last one we spoke about, the girl had been taken into the whatever, sleeping bag, as you called it.
Do you know what? Do you know what I think this episode should have been called? Okay, here's your little humour bit for this podcast. My thought, I was like, because they're mycelial network, they're like mushrooms, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. Mushroom spore things, and I was like, they've gone to the Mushroom Kingdom. So I was like, okay, so Tilly is Mario, and the girl, I can't remember what her name is now.
The Jamaican friend.
Yeah, that
one.
means that she's
May.
She's Princess Peach. So the big bad thing that's there is obviously Bowser. So I was just like, so if there's any clever people out there listening to this, do see if you can come up with if you're an artist, that would be awesome. Do us a picture of May as Mario, May as Peach, Tilly as Mario, and then the big bad, or well, what they thought was the big bad as Bowser. That would be so funny. But yeah, that's what I was just like, they should call this Journey to the Mushroom Kingdom. But yeah, so it basically just picked up from there, and we had that whole thing. Yeah. It was running. There was running. I thought it was an episode of Doctor Who for a minute. It was running down corridors and stuff, which that's how we started, wasn't it? With Michael running through the ship.
Yeah, doing her fitness thing.
Yeah. No, it wasn't it. She was doing her thing she was trying to get to engineering because they'd announced what had happened with Tilly. So she was running there to try and find out what's happened. But yeah, so she went there and obviously they explained that she's been taken. So basically they explained to her what we had seen at the end of the last episode, which was, like you said, this alien sleeping bag thing and how it just whisked her away.
And also, they found the trail of the Spock thing, and he'd got his defences up, but it wasn't Spock on the ship. They got the ship, they brought the ship in, and when they opened the door, Giorgio came out.
That was an interesting twist, wasn't it? Because I was like, we're going to get to see him.
Did she?
Yeah, it's like, we're going to get to see Spock, and then it's like, no, and then she walks out.
No. Especially after what you said again.
I know.
I was like, you from last week going, are they going to let... Oh, it's not him.
And she comes sauntering out all smug, and obviously Pike's like, Burnham, put down your phaser. You can put it down now. And she's like...
She just didn't want to do it, did she? She's like, I want to get it out. But that was quite interesting, that bit, because she's apparently from Section 31...
Yeah, which we know, which is the secret.
Who have to find, who are there, who are now looking. They're going to find Spot, but the other, they didn't know. It seemed like Pike didn't really know who she was.
No, he did, because he remembered her from their days in the academy, and he said
But
about
from
her being a
the other
big
stuff, I meant.
drinker. No, he thought the way he was acting was that she was the real Giorgio.
Yeah, that's what I meant. So he didn't really realise she was the other one.
Yeah, because he was saying about, oh, we don't know each other well, but we did cross
She
paths in
blagged
our.
that quite well, didn't she?
Mm-hmm. And he was on about the
And Bernard's
drinking.
looking with evil eyes all the time, going, oh, "You're gonna slip up in a minute," and she didn't.
Yeah.
So
So she announced she was there to obviously, what she was up to, and it was their mission, and that he was dangerous, and she was going to stop him, and all of this lot. And then they had the guy appeared, didn't he? Like a hologram, the boss. And he was like, again, it turned out they know each other. Pike knows him, and they go back. They've got history. And he says, look, you've got one of my operatives. You need to return it. And they say about this thing. There's an issue. And he's like, I'm going to send a diplomatic envoy to come over and discuss everything with you to coordinate things between our ship and your, our unit and your unit, basically. And wow. That was a bit of a surprise, wasn't it?
Yeah. There he was, Tyler.
Mm.
And Burnham looked pleasantly happy.
Yes.
And she was angry when she saw the other one, but when he came, it's thought it was him. She's like, oh.
And based on her reaction, Pike was looking at her, and he's kind of like, I think we need to have a conversation, because the way that you were with Giorgio and the way that you're acting now, there's clearly stuff going on here that you haven't told me about. And she's like, I will fill you in, but that's a story for that's for another time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'll leave you to it then. So obviously she went up and had a chat with him, and he sort of roughly filled her in, didn't he, about I was with the Klingon Empire, and then this thing happened, and now I'm here, and everything. My new word in my vocabulary is classified. Everything's classified. And they just had a chat about he was going to be sticking around. And then you had that really awkward moment when he got brought to the bridge, because obviously the Doctor, Stamets, had made a breakthrough, hadn't he? And he'd announced he was going to announce it on the bridge. And he had that really awkward moment where she came to the bridge with Tyler. And everybody was looking.
They looked like they want to kill him. What is he here for?
And it was worse for Stamets, because, for all intents and purposes, it was due to Tyler that Stamets' partner had died, and he just gave him daggers, and it was but you go, oh, good on, he sort of composed himself and carried on with, no, I need to focus on why we're here, which was then he said something about he'd found a way to find Tilly or something, using her DNA or something like that.
But they showed then, didn't they? Well, you were right, she'd got into the network.
Yeah.
And come out the other side, and with that crazy Jamaican May.
Yep.
She wanted Tilly to kill the monster, because there's a monster, you need to kill it, because it's ruined. It's killing off our land.
Yeah.
And she said it's all to do with Stanner. It's all his fault, because him, the spore drive thing, like we spoke about last week.
Yeah.
Every time they do that, a bit of the place gets disrupted, because it. And I suppose it's because it's fighting everything, isn't it? Because doesn't it say it destroys things it comes into contact with?
Yeah.
But then that makes it weaker, and because it all looked like it was. It looked like it had what was it called? Bushfire. Everything had got burnt. You know what I mean? There was originally trees and stuff. There's nothing now.
And she said that she said that it was one of the times where they'd used the network to jump. They had brought something through with them. And that thing had ended up staying there in the network, and it was demolishing everything. And she's like, don't touch anything, it's poisonous and all of that. And she's like, this is what it does. It's going through and it's destroying everything. And it's their fault. It's the crew and it's Discovery, and it's Stamets' fault, because you brought this thing here. So you need to get rid of it.
So all the time you're thinking, what is it? What we're going to find? What's it going to be? It's oh my goodness. So, Discovery decided that they were going to rescue Tilly.
Mm-hmm.
And Burnham said she'd go with Stannard into the network. he worked a way that if they was in the pod thing, wasn't it, that chamber thing,
It's
they
like
could get into the network.
Yeah, he could create
for so long in order to get Tilly out of there.
Could like open a temporary doorway without the whole ship going through.
Yeah.
So it'd be half in and half out. And then him and Michael and him would go off and they would try and find Tilly and bring her back again.
Yeah.
But they had to do it in a certain, because they said the spores will start attacking the ship and basically start eating it. So we've only got a select amount of time that we have to get in, find her, and get out again. And then obviously things got complicated because then you had the bit, you know, I mean, we don't need to tread through every step, but, you know, like, the ship appeared, Tilly and May saw it, they went towards it, and it eventually led to them meeting up with Stamets and Michael, and they're like, come on, let's go, and she's like, I can't go, you know, we have to help, you know, this is part of our edict of Starfleet, you know, we have to help things, and...
You made a pinky promise.
Yeah, that's right.
She swear with the girl, didn't she?
And she's like, we have to help her and we have to figure out what this monster is and then we can leave. So they're like, okay, come on then, let's do this, let's get a wriggle on. And then they saw all this weird stuff and they followed it.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
And then then there was something cowering in a corner. And they realised what it was, and it was Hugh.
Yes, and didn't that just blow your mind? I was just like, what the hell's going on?
How's he alive?
Yeah.
What's he doing in there? Like, he blatantly got killed on the ship, so how did he end up in there?
Yep.
So I was like, what? And obviously in the meantime, the ship's being eaten to pieces.
Yeah.
Like, I was thinking, no, the ship, and then those people appeared. They were there all the time watching them, weren't they? Section 31, and they just like, we're here, by the way.
Weren't they, like, disguised as, like, an asteroid or something?
Yeah. And then then they thought, oh, best help them, don't we? And so they appeared, and then he said, "Can't you?" What's he's asked them to do? They're not like tow ropes. What was it?
Like tractor beams.
Yeah. But their ship is so super cool, isn't it? So obviously, with the way they did it, when it happened,
they shot out these three things. Didn't they?
Even he was looking like, whoa. And it's like, was like, oh, yeah. Ooh.
And like he didn't want to help, did he? Like what's his name? Is it Leyland or something like that?
Yeah, that's it, Leyland.
And he was like going, oh, this, you know.
Soon we're going to stop. And Giorgio thought, no, I'm in charge. That we're going to give them time to get this sorted.
And she pulled rank on him a bit.
Yeah, she's like, I'm taking over.
Because didn't she have something on him? Didn't she say, remember that thing that happened? You don't want everybody knowing about that thing you did or something. I can't remember what it was now, but it's like she knew something about him and he sort of looked at it and he's like, really? You're going down that route? And she's kind of like, well, if it gets me what I want, sort of thing. And he's like, fine, you get X amount of extra, like 5 extra minutes or whatever. So he reluctantly agreed to let them sort of anchor them and prevent them all from being pulled into the network.
Yeah. So they decided they're going to take Hugh back, and they got him tried it. He held his hand, and as soon as he went into the box thing, he weren't there. It was like he weren't real. It was like he's only real in the other world. So then he started getting eaten away, didn't he? I said, I'm going to let them do it. He said, I should never have been alive. I was dead. So.
Because didn't May explain how it had happened? She said that like because of their crossing backwards and forwards in the network, like his energy had been sort of almost like copied to the network, and then they discovered this anomaly, and so using their like abilities in the network, they rebuilt him. Like so they were able to use the energies and the materials in the mycelial realm to like rebuild his energy into a form, but then because it wasn't meant to be there, it was then causing it to almost like act like a virus. It was almost like in the human body, wasn't it? He was a virus that was destroying everything.
They could put him back in the sleeping bag.
Because there was human DNA in the sleeping bag thing or something.
In the sleeping bag thing. Sleeping bag. It's like lava, wasn't it?
Yeah, sleeping bag. I prefer saying it's a sleeping bag. I mean, really, they actually kind of, in a way, they sort of made it seem that it was like an organic transport device. But no, I like the idea of it being a sleeping bag.
So anyway, so they got him in there, and then when they got back, they opened it, and he was there. Yeah. It's like, yay, he's back.
It was very very Terminator. He was like completely naked and like in a fetal position, and it was like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, and they covered him up, and they're like, oh my god, so he's now been rebuilt. He's now been brought back to life. So that's going to be interesting. It's also going to be interesting because they do this sometimes in sci-fi things. You know, where somebody's died and somehow comes back, and they explore that psychological thing of like, is it going to affect him psychologically about the fact that he died and he knows he died because, he's aware of the fact that he was dead and he was rebuilt and then put into like a new body was made. So it's kind of, it's him, but it's a copy of him. It's like, is that going to affect him in some kind of, psychological way?
Going forward, Go flashbacks or something.
Yes. So then the bit that you mentioned there a minute ago, so that was kind of the resolution of that. And I think my theory here is that this is how now, like we said last week, this is the beginnings of the end for the network, because Tilly made her a promise and she said, we're going to see each other again. And May was like, oh, I'm really sad. And I thought that was a bit weird because I was a bit like, why are they so close all of a sudden? And they were like, Tilly was really upset and stuff. And it's like, oh, we're going to find a way to see each other again. But because of everything they've gone through and what they've seen and what they're like, we caused this, we did all this. It's like, are they now going to go, look, the spore drive needs to go?
Yeah.
Because look at all the damage that's been caused as a result of it.
Well, yeah, they know that obviously at the time they didn't know the repercussions of what they were doing, because it was brilliant at the time, wasn't it? When they discovered they could do that, and then obviously because they had that creature, didn't they, originally, that big slug thing?
Yeah, the tardigrade.
Yeah, they had that first that was doing it, and then obviously Stannard somehow, what happened? Did he get affected by it? Something happened where he ended up being part of the spore drive.
Well, it was a case of having to, because it was killing the creature, wasn't it?
That's right. He said he'd take it over, and then obviously he'd have to go into that thing every time. But because it was really cool, because it was at the time where that guy wanted, when they had the other guy on board, wasn't it?
Lorca.
And they ended up in the they went in the future or the past, or they went all over the place, didn't they?
It was when Lorca wanted them to get back to the parallel dimension where he come from.
Yeah.
That's what they used it for.
Yeah. So the thing that they mentioned, the tachyon time travel.
Yes, this was the bit where obviously Pike got summoned to the Section 31 ship, and then he met up with Leyland, and then we got a surprise because then the Admiral came walking down the stairs. And it was like, oh my god, what's she doing here? And she's basically like, look, this is one of those situations where Section 31 and Starfleet proper have to work together. We need to work together on this. This is not a Black Ops mission versus a, clear as day mission. This is we're all working for the same organization. The things that Section 31 do, because then it was like that morally ambiguous thing, like she said to Pike, like, you might not like it, you might not like what they do sometimes, but what they do allows you to do what you do. So you have to just accept sometimes that certain things have to be done behind the scenes. But she's like, but we need to work together. And then they'd done some scans based on some of the stuff they'd found, and there'd been residues of tachyon energy, and it was like, but that's like temporal stuff, that's time travel stuff. It's like tachyon particles are to do with time travel. That now makes things really intriguing as to where they're going with this, and with Spock, and with the Red Angel, and the bursts. And it's like, they're introducing like this time travel element to this show now. Because we've had the multiple dimensions thing and stuff, but we haven't had time travel. So
no, that's true.
It was an intriguing little breadcrumb that they dropped, but they're like, this is a big deal. What's going on, it's not just about Spock disappearing, it's bigger than that, and this is why you guys need to work together. And as a result, we're leaving Tyler on your ship. So it's like, okay, so Tyler gets to stay on the Enterprise, not the Enterprise, sorry, the Discovery, and work with them.
That could be interesting again, because that guy's alive, and it's like, you're the guy who killed me.
Yeah.
He hasn't encountered him yet, has he? He hasn't encountered him. So I thought there might be some sort of like backlash to that, mightn't there? Burnham's pleased, though.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, got him back.
What's interesting as well now, if they're bringing in I just had this thought, if they're bringing in the whole concept of time travel and stuff, it's like, you remember I told you we were talking about the Picard show that they're currently making, and about how that's going to tie in to the existing Star Trek like series and films, and it's going to tie it together with the new J.J. Abrams films they made.
Yes.
It's going to sort of say, look, that these are all in the same continuity. It's just the J.J. Abrams films happen in a splinter universe.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting if this is all tied into that too. If like somehow this whole thing was Spock and stuff like that. And I mean, it may even be, because I don't know if there's going to be a third season of Star Trek Discovery. Maybe all our theories about the spore drive and this, that, and the other and stuff, maybe it's all going to get explained away through time travel. Maybe this will be the final set. Maybe there won't be a season 3, and something will happen to cause them to disappear from time, and then that will explain why. It never came up about Spock having a sister. It never came up about there being a spore drive. All these things will almost be rewritten out of history because of the time travel shenanigans.
Well, yeah, because that's what happens in our other things, isn't it? Where time travel, then those things...
And it'll be something like, because Spock seems to be the oracle for everything, that Spock knows everything that ever happened ever, there'll be a thing of like...
He's the centre of Star Trek, isn't he, basically?
And he'll remember... he'll remember that this was a thing. He'll remember once he had a sister and stuff like that. But it's like, but nobody else knows this, so I shall not speak of this ever again.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. I don't know. Like that's just wild speculation.
Maybe.
I've got nothing to base that on.
No.
I just find the idea of them introducing the concept of time travel just to be a really intriguing one. I mean, I know I'm really intrigued as well now. I find these sort of covert people, Section 31, really interesting. They've actually talked about the fact that they might be getting their own series. They might be doing this like Section 31. It might be a limited series rather than a full series, but it's going to be like a series exploring them and their like off the record missions. That would be quite interesting because I think there's a lot of intrigue because they're one of these things that's never really been explored in all of Star Trek. It's been mentioned here and there, but they've never really gone into the inner workings of how this organization is like built and how it works and what they get up to. So maybe getting a closer look at them would be quite interesting.
Yeah, just like a small sort of just one season where you just get the whole. But then I suppose there'd be no point if they don't do any more Star Trek Discovery, will there?
Well, no,
unless they come into this new thing that's going to be coming on.
It would be a spin-off story, wouldn't it? It would be a kind of like. Just a spin-off.
They do that with everything.
Discovery.
It does annoy me. When they go, oh, we've got another program made off of another program. It's like, how many? I like it when they're all part of the same program. It's just more things to watch.
I mean, maybe it's, you never know, because sometimes these episodes go out to test audiences first. Yeah. Maybe when they first sent out the stuff to do with Section 31, there was lots of people going, these people are really interesting, blah, blah, blah. And the Star Trek Discovery people were like, well, look, we're going to have them in the show, but we don't want to make the show all about them because we've got this other story to tell. So, as there's an interest for these people, what if we do a series just about them? Maybe it came about from focus groups and things like that, and that's what made them decide to this idea of a show.
Yeah, because I can appreciate all these spin-off things, but then you get confused because like they have to be, if they're they're sort of part of something else you're watching, you need to be able to relate to it easier enough. You know what I mean? It has to be like running alongside or in between. Like, like with the Fear the Walking Dead, it's to do with Walking Dead, but it's before Walking Dead.
Yeah.
So you don't get totally confused watching that after you've watched Walking Dead, do you? Because it's similar type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on in between, and then we obviously go back to the future base. Well, obviously they weren't at one point; they were all the same time. But when you have all these little extra things, like obviously going to your other thing, we're not going to talk about today. But we had the Titans, which we'll talk about, and now we've got the spin-off
Doom Patrol,
with
yeah,
extra people in it. It's like, yeah, but it's like, how are we going to, how could you keeping up with it all, isn't it? Because is it ever going to tie back in with the other one?
No, I think
they just make any excuse to make another program.
As far as that's concerned, I can talk explicitly about that particular thing. So Doom Patrol, there was always a plan to do a Doom Patrol show because this is all connected to the fact that DC have got their own like Netflix type thing, their DC streaming app. So they need programs for that app they need they need original programming. So one of the plans, obviously, when they came up with ideas for shows, was to do a Doom Patrol show. So they always had this plan to do a Doom Patrol show as well as a Titans show. So it's not a case of, with Doom Patrol, that they got loads of feedback about that episode and went, oh, people are really interested, we're going to make a show about them. It was, we're going to make a show about them, so we're going to put an episode in Titans that introduces these characters.
Right. So it was always pre-planned.
Yeah, whereas what I'm saying about the Star Trek thing, I don't think the Giorgio Section 31 series was always pre-planned. I wonder whether it was one of those, they got good feedback from early screenings of those episodes, which made them think there's enough interest here, we could get away with making a series just about them.
Yeah, maybe because of their technology and their ships and things. They think that actually could be quite interesting, what they actually do.
Yeah.
As a site, not like totally all about, that it doesn't take anything away from Star Trek, does it?
No.
They've come into Star Trek in this thing, but then they're a separate entity anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like they come into contact with some of the officials from Star Trek, but they're not actually the main Star Trek, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose they could do it like that if they did it. Yeah, if they did it like a separate entity.
Mm-hmm.
Just exhausting, darling, watching so many programs. I have to keep up to date with every little sideline. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's the thing, though. I mean, you say
I have to go to work sometimes.
It's only
and sleep.
Sleep? What's that?
You don't do because you never do.
It's only exhausting when all these things are on at the same time, though. I mean, the thing is, when you get, it's a godsend when we have all these additional programs and some of our main programs come to an end. It's like, well, at least we've still got these things to watch. Yeah. So, I mean, it works out. I mean, because you've got other things on the horizon. I mean, we've got Lucifer coming back soon. We've got the new that new thing with David Tennant and Michael Sheen in Good Omens. That starts soon. Season 3.
Know what that is.
Oh, we'll talk about that separately. You'll like it. I definitely think it's one you'll enjoy watching. Jessica Jones season 3 is on the horizon in the next couple of months. So there's other things coming back. Oh, Legion. I mean, that's not until the end of the year. Legion season 3, but we've got that coming back.
Expanse.
We've got the Expanse coming back. So we've got all these other shows, but along the way, some of our other shows will come to an end. So it'll be like, okay, well, this has ended, this has ended, this has ended, but we've now got X, Y, and Z programs to sort of fill in the gaps. It's only, like I said, it's only exhausting when it's like you get that overlap period where the main shows are still on and then the new shows are coming in. But then once the main shows finish and you're just left with the new shows, then it's a bit more manageable again.
Yeah, because obviously there are other things we watch that we can't talk about because we just haven't got the time.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got things like American Gods is coming back in the not too distant future.
We've got all the Black Lightning we can't talk about because we haven't got time. That's another one. So it's just like so many. We'd have to have like 2 a week. Split them into 2.
I mean, I think that, I mean, what we'll do, I mean, we might maybe at some point, perhaps we'll do a poll or something once we've been going a little while. We'll
see what programs they want us to talk about.
Yeah, we'll find out from the listeners and sort of.
If there's anything we don't talk about that they want us to, that we probably watch anyway, we say, right, yeah, can you include that series?
Yeah.
And we'll go, yeah, because we watch that anyway.
And we'll collate the results and we'll kind of go, okay.
Because it's like an endless amount of programs we watch, to be fair. I mean, when we have our normal chats, it's about 7 hours. So podcast-wise, we can't do that.
I mean, that's the thing as well, isn't it? When you look at places like, like AfterBuzz TV and places like that review all these shows, they have separate teams for every program. So they can record multiple shows based on each one of these TV shows with a whole new group of people, whereas, there's just you and me. We don't have a whole team of people. We just have us two. So... yeah. Us two covering that many TV shows that's quite a big undertaking. I mean, we're doing it as best.
I just give up my day job, Dom.
Well, that's the thing, if people, here's a good opportunity here, people. If you go in the description box and you want to donate to the Patreon or to the Ko-fi and, help us get enough, and also subscribing. If you subscribe, more subscribers to the channel, the bigger I grow, the more opportunities I'll get with YouTube. So then that way we can make a living off this, and then my mum can give up her job, and then we can both make a living off doing this, and then we can put shows out for you like, every other day. So if you'd like that to happen, only you have the power. You can make it happen.
You have the power to make it happen.
Yes.
Anywho, I think we need to move on to our light-hearted program, which is can I do the intro to this one? If you don't know this program, it is a space program like our Star Trek is, but it's loosely based on Star Trek and various other things. Yeah, so we like this because it's actually written and it includes the actor in it is Seth MacFarlane, who wrote Family Guy and American Dad, I think it is.
Yep.
And because all our other programs are so intense and it's nice to have a light-hearted thing at the end of it. So it takes, it's not taking the mick out of Star Trek, but it includes a lot of Star Trek things because obviously he's a massive fan.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it's the second season, but the episode we're going to talk about is about one of the aliens, Bodus. Now, what planet is he from? What are they called?
Bortus is from. Oh, I completely forgot, because they mention his planet. Moclus.
Moclus, that's it. So we have these Moclus, this couple that are on the ship. They're a gay couple,
mm-hmm.
And the man, well, they're both men, but the husband version has decided he wants the moustache. He's decided he wants to simulate. Not simulate. Is it simulate? Or how do they create things? Like if they want to drink, they make it.
Yeah, it's replicate.
Replicate, yeah. So he decided he wants to grow a moustache. And one thing we love about this program, although it's not Star Trek connected, they have a robot, like in Lost in Space, and everybody loves a robot.
And in Star Trek, in Star Trek Next Generation, they had Data, who was a humanoid-looking robot.
They never did they?
No.
No, well, I'm just sort of more referencing Lost in Space, really. So his name's Isaac, and he is very well acquainted with the Doctor. They have a Doctor on their ship, like they do in most Star Treks.
Mm-hmm.
And he's noticed she's being a bit moody, so he decides to bring her a banana to cheer her up. She's got a bit cranky, which was really funny. He's also teaching this Doctor's son how to play the piano.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, we had an amazing piano recital.
Yep.
Yeah, so this little kid, he's about 6, I suppose,
mm-hmm.
playing. So they're on a spaceship, and then they're sat like they're in a theatre.
Yeah.
Listening to this young kid playing piano for the crew. I'm a massive fan of Isaac.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out the Doctor apparently fancies him.
Yeah.
So that was quite bizarre. I was like, well, he doesn't have any feelings. He's only here to observe what the humans do. Well, not just the humans, it's the humans and the aliens. He's basically on the ship to analyse how they do everything, isn't it, basically?
And he's got to send reports back to his home planet.
Yeah. So he's there just to tag along to take reports, send it back to the home planet. So in this episode, she decided to tell him she wanted to go on a date with him.
Yeah.
So he then reported back to the crew on
the bridge.
The bridge. Yeah, so he tracked the guys there and told them that he was going on this date. So they told him he had to dress for the occasion.
Yeah.
And obviously he's just a robot. He doesn't know anything about dressing. He's just made of metal.
Mm-hmm.
So they dressed him up and he looked so cool.
It was really odd though, wasn't it? Seeing him all shiny and silver, but dressed up in people clothes.
Yeah, in clothes as well on top.
Yeah.
And he took her to a proper symphony, and it was a proper orchestra.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant, and they played Singing in the Rain.
Mm-hmm.
That was hilarious. I did love that. I thought he always gets something in there, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So then they went for dinner. Was it when they went for dinner afterwards? And because he knows everything, because he remembers everything, because obviously the data, he knows everything about her, where she came from, and she was saying you need to be more spontaneous. You can't just rattle off all this information about me because you're not getting to know me.
Yeah. Obviously, he not only does he remember and absorb everything himself, but because he's tied into all the computer systems on the ship, anything about their that's on their files about their likes, their dislikes, their background, where they're from, everything, all the stuff that you would normally go through when you're dating someone and you're getting to know them. He already knew everything.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, there's no romance here because, like, you basically, what I like to eat, like what I like to do, where I came from, and it's like,
yeah,
there's nothing interesting and surprising and getting to know you kind of thing.
Yeah, because obviously that's what she was missing, and so because she really, even though he's a robot, he was obviously interesting because he's clever and everything. That was what attracted her to him.
Yeah.
But he did surprise her, didn't he? Because they have a simulation chamber so they can go in and pretend they're back in where they used to live or go to their favourite restaurant or whatever.
Yep.
And he made himself look human.
Which was really interesting
because
was
awesome.
That's the actual actor. That's what he looks like, really.
That's the actor that plays him, yeah.
So I
didn't know that. I presumed it was.
We got to see the human form of Isaac, which was, that was really weird and kind of cool at the same time.
Yeah. And then they obviously went back to the cabin. Oh, Mrs. Had a little bit of hanky-panky as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, being a robot, obviously doesn't usually get to do those things. But obviously then, wasn't that what happened? He then went and said, well, I've done all that now. I've done the conjugal rights and all this stuff. So that's it. We don't need to see each other anymore. And one of the women said, robots are as bad as men.
Yeah, because he sort of turned into a chauvinist then, didn't he? And it was all that kind of like, I'm just sitting here doing this thing, get my dinner, and all of this kind of attitude. And it was like, well, that's, you've gone from 0 to 100 in like... He was
sitting in his pants, wasn't it, at one point? In
the
living room.
Yeah, that's right.
It was hilarious. So she got really annoyed with him, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And so then obviously he went back to the guys and goes, no, you're not supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that. And then she had said at one point when they over dinner about the rain. She loved the feel of the rain.
Yeah, that's right.
Smell of rain.
Mm-hmm.
And she was called onto the bridge for something she thought it was the captain wanted her. Because they're quite short episodes, aren't they, these programs?
Yeah.
So she got called onto the bridge, and apparently it wasn't the captain. It was Isaac had called her on.
Mm-hmm.
And then it started raining.
Yeah, he executed this like environmental program. So it started raining in the bridge, and then Singing in the Rain came on, and then he asked her to dance with him.
Dancing, but the captain and everyone else just stayed in their positions.
Yep.
And they were getting absolutely soaking wet. It's hilarious. It's just that it's just so funny, that program. It's just it ended with the song and them dancing to the rain and them all sitting on the ship. I think somebody made a comment. I can't remember, the ginger guy. To do with the fact they were sat there getting wet. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, it was this kind of so we're just going to sit here and just get soaked sort of thing. It's like, that's what we're all going to do. And then they, the other thing, the sort of end point of it was that he took her on another date, didn't he? And they went back to that same restaurant, and then he revealed he'd wiped all of his memory banks.
Yes.
So it's like, now we can do it properly. This time, what would you like to eat? What's your favourite food? And it's like, because he didn't know anymore, because he erased all that information from his memory.
Yeah, where were you from originally, and all stuff like that. It's like, oh, it's so sweet.
It was a really kind of soppy, sentimental episode, and it was quite funny because it was shown the week before Valentine's Day.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
It was a Valentine's episode because, you had, like you mentioned, like near the beginning, you had that kind of weird comedy side plot with Bortus and the moustache and synthesizing moustache, and Clyden didn't like the moustache and stuff, and it was like that whole little plot thread was kind of just there for the comedy element this week.
Yeah.
And it didn't really serve any further purpose for anything. The main crux of the story was all to do with Claire, the doctor, and obviously Isaac, and how the hurdles and everything they had to overcome to to actually have a relationship. But
yeah, they usually have sort of like two little bits in, like the next episode was similar as well, wasn't it? There was obviously two different storylines, but their main one was to do with the main story.
Yeah. But it was just, it was a nice little throwaway episode. It was
He's just so funny, and he just sits there, the captain, the guy that writes it, grinning.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's sitting there going, "This went perfect."
Yeah, this is just how I envisaged it. Yeah, it was very cool. It was very, very cool. So it's a very odd episode, but a very nice, very sweet.
Generally, they are fair.
Yeah.
Like I say, you very often get some good storylines. The season, it builds up, doesn't it, to the end of the season? But they try and make it mainly light-hearted. So not like taking the mick out of Star Trek, but like saying, well, it could have been like this.
One other thing, I think, yeah, this is something actually an observation for me based on season 1 and also this season, is that it's almost as if Seth MacFarlane looked and went, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I like all the space stuff and all the drama and the ongoing storylines. But one thing they don't do is they don't show, what do they do, like, as people? Because at the end of the day, they're still people. They're still, they still have to go to the toilet and they still have to eat dinner and they have to have leisure time and things like that. And those aspects aren't always focused on as much in the more kind of serious, like, Star Trek shows.
It's quite a big part of that, isn't it? Where they have the bar, they all go to the bar, and at the end of the day, when they've finished the shifts, which is nice, isn't it? When they have things like that, and like they had the playing of the music, and they all went to see the little boy play because they have children on the ship and stuff like that.
Like there's as much emphasis on that side of things as there is on all of the kind of sci-fi stuff.
Yeah. That's what makes it good, though, doesn't it? Because it makes it more real.
Yeah.
Like, surely, yes, there's got to be other things that go on apart from just like, we're just going to follow that spaceship and solve that problem. So he brings in the other elements that you probably would love to see on those other programs, but they're trying to take it a little bit more serious so they don't incorporate it so much. But so then we had this week's episode.
Yes, this week's one was called Deflectors. And funnily enough, obviously we said this at the beginning of talking about the first episode, about the place they went to Bortus's planet, didn't they? They went to Moclus because they were going to have some new shields put on the ship.
Deflector things,
yeah. Deflector shields, that's right, yeah. Oh, yeah, hence the name of the episode. So, yeah, they went and got that installed, and there was a very awkward moment, wasn't there?
Yeah, the new engineer was Bortus's ex. It was the new engineer.
Yeah. And they're like, he's the best that we have. He's the best engineer in the Moclan fleet and stuff like that. So he's going to come on board and he's going to oversee the installation and all the tests, and he's going to stay on board the Orville. And it was like, ooh, okay.
But this might be a bit awkward.
And like you had that, like there was that whole bit with like when Clyden became aware of the fact that who he was and stuff like that, and he's like, you should invite him out, and like he turned up at their room and he was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I thought I'd stop by. And then he's like, come in, you must join us for dinner and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, this is our son.
It's almost like pulling rank, sort of say, like, but I'm married to him.
Yeah.
You might be the ex, but look at us, we have a child and we live together. Yeah, you can join in the dinner, but just know your place. It was almost like that, like a woman would do, wouldn't it, with an ex-girlfriend?
Yeah, I don't feel threatened by you because he's my man now, so... I'm comfortable enough to have you round for dinner and stuff and show you this is our little family unit sort of thing, yeah. Yeah, it was funny. And the other thing, this is just a random observation. When I first saw the guy, I was like, my God, that's a tall man.
Yes.
Because it's like, these guys, they're not like tiny people, they're not like short. They're above sort of average men height. Yeah. But this guy was huge. I was like, he's so tall.
Yeah.
That's related to nothing. That was just an observation when I saw him. But
we also had at the beginning of that episode Kelly, the second. She's second officer, isn't she? Second.
Yeah. Yep.
She's been going out with that guy Cassius.
Yep.
And she decided she didn't want to go out with him anymore.
Well, it's because he wanted more, didn't he? He was like, I want to do the whole, I want to settle down, I want to have a family, I want to get married.
Yeah,
and she's like,
it wanted to be too serious, and it wasn't what she wanted.
Yeah, and so she's like, I can't do this. I've got my responsibilities in my job, and I don't know if I can commit to all the things you want, so, I think maybe we shouldn't see each other anymore. And it was like, oh, okay. So that was sort of the end of their relationship. But then that sort of
throughout the whole
bubbled
episode,
along,
he kept
didn't
trying
it?
to convince her.
Yeah, to the point where you had that really weird bit.
A giant flower.
That was the most weird thing. I mean, on a show that excels in doing weird, that was really weird.
It's like the flower off the flower pot men, a giant one.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? You expected Bill and Ben to come out and it's like flobber weed. Maybe that's why you put it in. Maybe it's like a big flower pot man. That was so funny. It's like, what's that thing?
And then he was like, was it singing? Did it sing or something?
Yeah, it was singing, yeah.
And then when it spoke, it had a really deep voice, and it was like, his name was like Gary or something, and he's like, oh, is it actually, instead of, it wasn't just a random talking plant, it was actually a species of alien.
Yeah, some sort of alien, wasn't it?
that had come on board, like, when they'd stopped off somewhere the last time, and he was like, oh, Cassius... Was it something like his kids? He teaches his kids or something like that. So he was like, I owed him a favour. So that's why he came to deliver this.
He's like, it works in the classroom.
Yeah.
He said, right, I owed him a favour, so I thought I'd come and surprise you. I was like, no, I'm not interested. But then there was also a bit where, because obviously Ed, who's the captain, Seth MacFarlane, him and Kelly were a relationship.
Yeah.
So then she's telling him all about her breakup, which was so funny when she was saying all the stuff about him.
Yeah.
And the other guy's going, oh, it was terrible. Ed was going, oh, and I thought, she's talking about you too. That's what you were like.
Yeah.
And the other guys, you can see they're definitely going to get back together. Like the two officers, the ginger guy and the other guy.
Yeah.
We're watching them go, look, look at them. You can see they definitely still love each other. But the way she was talking about Cassius, Ed was like going, oh, that's terrible. Oh, really? Was he doing that? I was like, that's what you used to do. That's why he split up with you.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
And then, like, when she got again, it's weird, actually. In a week that we had Supergirl and the marshmallow thing, she got something similar, didn't she? Like edible... Yeah. Things, and then he was like, she was like, help yourself, and then she's like, you can take them if you want. And he's like, oh, thank you, and he's like, walked off with them, and he's like eating away at them and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? Yeah, considering it was he's done that before. Like he did something the other week, which we said was a Star Trek a program we'd watched, and that something similar was in their program. Thought, yeah. How does he know what they write in their programs? He always gets his own little take on it.
Spies everywhere.
Yeah. The main storyline was to do with the Bortus, the engineer, wasn't it? This week.
Yes, obviously Bortus was uncomfortable with him being there. We didn't really know why. We didn't know what the circumstances of the breakup was or anything like that, but it was like, well, there's this guy and he's there to help, and like they were running their tests. I had this moment where I thought there's going to be some big twist in the tale here, because you know the bit when they got the deflectors on and they were like, right, we're going to run a simulation, and they got the captain of the Moclan ship was like, you're going to chase us and shoot us and all of this lot.
That was cool, that bit.
It was really cool. And then obviously Malloy was doing all these fancy things, and he's like, Malloy, stop. They're supposed to try and shoot us. You can't keep dodging everything, because otherwise, the test won't be worth anything. And, oh, sorry, Captain. But when they started shooting torpedoes, and they're like, wait, you're not meant to, nobody said that. And I was like, oh, is something going wrong here?
Are they doing something bad instead of good?
Yeah, but obviously
and then when he kept saying, no, you've got to stop. He goes, no, it'll restart in a minute. I thought, oh, they're going to sabotage it.
Yeah.
And he's going, no, it'll restart in a minute. And the guy was panicking, wasn't he? He wanted to stop. And then all of a sudden, the woman went, look, it's all right. It's restarted, like he said. Just like, oh. Oof. But it did look a bit dodgy at one point, didn't it? We thought, really? Are these aliens actually aren't as friendly as we thought they were?
So that was all that stuff. And then because obviously he was on board the ship and he was sort of going to hang around for a little while before he went back to his own ship, he took an interest in our new security officer.
Yes, she's also an alien of types, isn't she?
Yeah, well, she's like the girl that was in it previously, isn't she? She's the same species as
They look a bit Spocky-fied, don't they? They're not.
Well, yeah, they
Vulcan.
are. They are Alara. That was her name. They are very much like the Orville's version of Vulcans. Yeah, definitely.
Vulcans, that's it.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, she replaced Alara, and so she's a bit tougher and a bit more sort of sort of thing. But he was kind of sort of interested, and he went to her quarters, didn't he? And he sort of
Yeah.
admitted to her, he was like, "I kind of fancy you," and she's like, "What? Like, don't you all like stay at the same sex?" And I didn't think you were interested in women. And then he explained that on their planet there are some of their species that have feelings towards females, but it's like it's not allowed, it's taboo. And what I thought was really interesting here was I thought they're doing a reverse gay story.
Mm.
You know, it's a reverse gay story where, you know, like not so much nowadays. Obviously, in some sectors of the world, it still is a little bit, but generally speaking, you know, it's not a taboo thing as it was years ago. If you go back in time, the idea of homosexuality and stuff was very taboo. And that's kind of what they were doing here. They're saying, like, this is how we do it in our, you know, our species. We mate with the same sex. And if somebody is interested in the opposite sex, they are a deviant. They are wrong. They are, you know, it's going against all of our laws and our religions and everything else. So it's like, so being straight in their society is the equivalent of being gay in sort of like, you know, present day. So I thought it was an interesting, again, social commentary thrown in amongst all this comedy and sci-fi and stuff like that. It was like, I was like, oh, that's very interesting. You know how they're sort of doing this analogy, and he, you know, he explained that obviously it's a punishable crime on their planet and stuff, but he couldn't help his feelings, and she didn't really know what to make of it all, did she? But
no,
she was kind of interested. She was a bit like, well, this is intriguing to me. This is different, and so she kind of agreed to sort of almost like go on a date with him.
Yeah, she took him into the simulator, didn't she?
Yeah.
She took him to New York.
Mm-hmm.
I was teaching him to dance in the street.
Yeah, because he didn't really get it, did he? Because he was like, oh, Mokla's dancing is very different to this. You know, it's like, it's more violent and stuff, and it's not elegant and stuff like that.
And because somebody had seen her talking to him, looking like quite, they'd reported her, so she said, you just stay here and enjoy yourself, and I'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got called into the office.
Yeah.
And they asked Porters why they split up, and he said, there was some comment about a relationship, the relationship becomes before the egg. Or something, and he said when they break up, they take a tooth or something.
Yeah.
Because they mate for life or something, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So if they ever break up, they take a tooth or something. There was some sort of comment about that. Anyway, in the meantime, he's dancing away, and so all we see is the door open from the simulator.
Yeah.
Someone comes in, which was Bortus's other half. What?
Biden.
Yeah, and said something to him.
I know what you are.
Yeah, I know what you are. That's right. And then all we saw is somebody shoot at him. So anyway, after she'd finished in the meeting, she went back to find him, and he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So they were looking everywhere for him, weren't they?
Yep.
And they leveled it down to what happened? The simulation was corrupted, so they could see a figure, but they couldn't really see who it was.
That's right.
So they had to work on the simulator to fix the virus that had corrupted the data to see who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it came up as Bortus's partner.
Yeah.
So he was taken into custody because he was accused of killing him.
Yeah.
Because the way it looked, it was basically him shooting him.
And then they were like, you know, we have to take him in. And at that point in the story, I just thought, this has got to be it for him now. Because there's been previous infractions, you know.
Yeah, because they said he was aggressive, wasn't he, before that time?
Yeah.
That time when they he attacked Bortus, didn't he?
Yeah, it was when they were going to split up.
They were going to split up, so beat him up. So I thought, oh no, how's he going to get out of this? He clearly was jealous, really jealous, because the way I looked at it, I thought, he's jealous. He pretended he was all right with it, but he thought, no, he's a threat. Got to get rid of him. But then they worked it out.
Yeah.
They looked into it further, didn't they? And it worked it out that the simulator had been tampered with, basically.
Yeah.
And the guy had done it himself. he looked like he killed himself. So basically, he'd committed suicide. But obviously,
No.
Was it?
It wasn't. No. Not that he'd committed. It was so that he didn't. It didn't look like he had committed suicide. Basically, when they were questioning Clyden said, "Look, I didn't do anything." And he said, "I went. I did go there, and I confronted him, and I told him I knew a secret." And then they're like, "What's this all about, a secret?" And then Bortus then admitted the truth and said that what
he knew about
he
it,
was, and he knew about the fact that he was attracted to females. And obviously the captain of the other ship was outraged about all of this, and they were like, "Oh, it's, it's not on, it's not right," and all of this lot. And that was all of that. And then when they discovered that the logs had been altered and that no one had really shot him at all, it was all staged, they did a search, and they were looking everywhere for him. And then she eventually found him.
In one of the pods, wasn't he? One of the
and he had like a personal
pods.
Cloaking device. And then he explained to her why he'd done it, because he said, because obviously it's a taboo thing. And then he said, and also the way that their culture is so honor-based and stuff, he couldn't kill himself because then his whole family and anyone connected to him would basically be banished. They would be banished from the planet. So, because he was like, suicide is not just seen as like a, it's not just a personal thing. It's like, if you commit suicide, you condemn your whole family. So you might die, but they will have to be punished as a result of it. And knowing what he was, and knowing that he would never be accepted by his society, it was like he was his only way out. His only way to get out of this was fake his death and then disappear, because then that way there would be no shame on his family wouldn't be banished, he could go off and live his life as he was. And the way he was looking at it was that no harm, no foul, apart from the fact that obviously Clyden would have got in trouble as a result of it.
Well, she convinced him, didn't she? Because she said an innocent man is going to be in trouble for this now.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, can't I stay on the ship? Can't you just hide me? Can't I just stay here?" And she said, "No, I can't do that because it's not fair on the guy that's going to get done for it."
And then she said that the option you do have, though, is claim asylum. Basically claim asylum and say that you want to stay here. But then his mind became clear and he realised, what I've done is wrong. I'm not going to claim asylum. I'm going to return to my planet and accept my fate. And they're trying to talk him out of it. And he was like, no, it's the only way. I have to do right by my family. I have to do, all of this kind of stuff. And obviously Clyden was really happy. He was went to her and he was like, "Thank you for going above and beyond." She's like, it's my job. And he's like, "Yeah, but I really appreciate it." And then she turned on him, didn't she?
Yeah.
Because she was like, it's because of your bigotry and your small-mindedness of your people that this gentle man, this gentle soul, this is what's happened. And again, it was that whole reflection of the real world of you being prejudiced, you being a bigot, you being against anything that's different, look at what's come of it.
Yeah, because it was sad, wasn't it? Because he went back and then they showed him probably going to his death, wasn't it?
Yeah, because, it was so brief, wasn't it? Because they brought him in, and as soon as he walked in, he didn't get a chance to say anything. The judge guy just looked, banged his thing, as if to say, that's the sentence has been passed.
Yeah.
And it was just like
wow. As light-hearted as it can be, like I said, they have sort of gritty stories within the light-heartedness, don't they?
Mm.
And obviously that was a message, like you say. It was a prejudice type message, wasn't it? Really, it got across.
Yeah.
Which is really good, but you don't. It's clever the way he does it.
Yeah.
He writes things in like that. In previous episodes as well, where we've had bits there's a moral to the story at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so looking forward to that this week. That'll probably be on tonight or tomorrow, won't it?
Yeah, I think it's sort of available to watch now. I think it was on last night in the States, so we'll have access to it here as of today or as of this evening. That being Friday the 22nd when we're recording this. But yeah, I just think it's a really great show. I just really enjoy it. And like you said, it's the way that he balances the silly, wacky, off-the-wall humour with the sci-fi stuff, with the sweet stuff, with the light-hearted stuff, but then also they can tackle heavy subjects.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid to do that, and it balances it in a way that you don't come away from it going, well, that was a bit meh, or why did they do that, or whatever. You go away going, and also it's the fact that you can see the real life equivalents to what he's trying to do in the show. It's very clever.
Yeah. It's very, very clever.
Because it's not the first time, it's not the first time we've had conversations about this program. We've sort of said it parallels this thing in the real world or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very good. The only other observation I was going to say quickly, it was going back to that bit earlier on with to do with Kelly and Cassius and stuff. Was do you not feel that what's his name? I think I called the plant Gary, but I think it's the other guy's called Gary, isn't he? You know, the weird alien with the kind of light bulb shaped head.
Oh yes.
He's almost like this season's version of the green blob from the first season. Because, like in the first season, you had the green blob guy that works in engineering, and he was very much like the kind of Family Guy type thing.
He is in it briefly. He was in it, I think, this week.
Yeah, we see him a little bit, but we don't see him as much now.
No.
But in season 1, he was kind of like the silly, wacky Family Guy type character with all the really silly humour. And now we've got this other character, and you kind of look at him and go, yeah, he's the Family Guy style character. He's the animated comedy character that they've got in here, who comes out with one-liners and says silly little things and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
So he incorporates a bit of that into it, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, all in all, really good.
All in all, really good.
Mm.
So yes, that's a good roundup.
Yep, that pretty much covers it all. So that's it all done. So now next week, obviously, like I said, we're going to have no Supergirl, no Flash, no Arrow. We will have Walking Dead, we will have Star Trek, we will have the Orville, and maybe we'll find something else to sort of pad that out a little bit, because otherwise, talking about 3 episodes, it'll be a very brief one.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll discuss that off mic, off recording, and we'll work out a
strategy. We'll make a plan
strategy.
of action.
We will indeed. But yeah, so I think that draws us to a nice conclusion. I can't think of any overarching sort of points or anything that I want to bring up. Can you? No, I think we covered it all. Okay, brilliant. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed that this week, and yeah, you enjoy listening to this, and join us again for our next show, which hopefully will again be up in a week's time after this one, and give us some feedback, comments, and stuff are great. If things make you laugh, if you're annoyed with us, if you wish we'd gone into a bit more depth about this thing or that thing or whatever it is, or even if you just agree and go, yeah, I really like this bit because of blah blah blah, it'd be lovely, because then that way we can maybe incorporate that. If we've got some really good comments and that, we can say, this person said, and we can sort of
Don't forget to subscribe.
Yes, don't forget to subscribe, because then, let my mum achieve her dream of being able to give up her job and become a full-time podcaster on YouTube.
And like we said earlier, if there's any particular programmes you like, that you want us to talk about, just let us know on the comments, and then we'll see if we can fit them in at some point.
Yes. And we must adhere to our promise. You've got, at some point in the next couple of weeks, you need to get a picture of Bruce with the headphones on. So that we can show everybody the geeky sci-fi theme music loving chocolate Labrador.
Yes, I will.
So we'll get a picture of that and we'll put that up on the video as well. So that will do it for this week. So thank you very much for joining us. So thank you once again, Mum.
That's not a problem. I'm glad I didn't cough too much.
No, yeah, you managed all right, actually. So yeah, there was a few moments. And
not too much editing.
Not too much, no. Yeah, so that'll be it. So we will see you guys next time. You take care now, guys. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you. Bye. Bye, 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 bye.